Hey everybody, it's AJ Plate, and here again with Better, Faster, and Easier, where we talk to amazing people who are living amazing lives. And everybody, this is my friend Gerald Rogers. How you doing, Gerald?
I'm doing amazing today. So good to be with you, AJ. Thank you.
Well, for those who are new to the show, what we do is we just kind of ponder life together. It's totally unscripted. I'm not sure what we're talking about, but we usually get to it pretty fast, and we just talk about how to make life either better, how to get results faster, or how to make life easier. Just one of those three things, which kind of encompasses everything right off the bat.
Or
But
or or all three. We might just hit all three of them today, huh?
yeah. So Gerald, boy, when did I meet you? About 2000,
It's been 2008. That's
2008.
when 2008. That's when I first, I think, met
That's
you at
5 years.
the
Boy, it feels.
Winter Circle. That's when I did my first event too, and
Yeah.
you were for that.
Well, normally I would say, wow, it's been that long or something. But actually, with you, I feel like, wow, it's only been that short because my connection with you feels like, we're right on the same page right away. So therefore, it felt like it's like people that I've known for like a long, even, 15 years or so. So this kind of interesting difference in feel there. So anyways, Gerald does a number of great programs around personal development in the past. You've also, made your mark in the around the real estate arena, but now it's mostly just the personal development, correct, and business development.
Yeah, primarily working with entrepreneurs and teach them how to live purpose-driven lives and make money doing what they love. So even though it's a lot, I think everything is personal development, but I
Uh-huh.
think more than anything, owning your own business is the ultimate personal development experience. So being able to learn how to clear your blocks and get yourself motivated and get yourself clear on a vision is so critical, and being able to stay on your sole purpose.
When I've been watching some movies of like way back old movies, and before it was the warrior, and the warrior would go out, with the personal development was almost forged as a warrior, and they would, because everything who they are, what they do, who they're being, all came out in that because they had to provide for the place. And so today the entrepreneur, the solopreneur, is today's modern warrior. They have to, what they, I love working with them too, because when you change something in their mind, it's like they can instantly change it into something in their business. It's more noticeable with them than some other things. So that's why we like those.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you should bring that up because that's been on my mind a lot, just about how much success in business is about activating that warrior energy within us. It's about learning how to just get the task done and focus on the goal, being able to move past opposition and really, I guess for me, really learning to step fully into our masculine energy and power.
Uh huh.
And it's also funny. It's also funny because I even look at women that I know, women that are super successful in business,
Uh huh.
and it seems like those that are most successful are really also in tune with the masculine energy within them. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, lately I've been having some conversations with people about, tapping into the feminine energy for that inspiration, and yet we also, but what we've talked about was actually having a balance between the two, and stepping into the masculine energy, which is production. Yeah, and yeah, so there's really a good. It's a very important part too.
Yeah, and I kind of look at the shifts that we're experiencing. 2012 was, I think, for a lot of people, just a year of massive transition. I mean, did you kind of feel that too?
Oh
Like
boy, it's like everybody,
everything.
right?
Yeah, it seems like everyone I talked to, 2012 just turned us inside in, out, and upside down, and just changed the way that we looked at a lot of things. And I heard one person sharing how their vision of this change that's happening through our culture and through our economy and everything is kind of a shift from the old way of doing business, old way of seeing things, a shift from the love of power to the power of love. And it's almost
Ah,
like the shift that's occurring is like back when money was so easy to get and everyone's so materialistic. That was a very masculine energy that drove that,
Uh-huh.
drove business and drove everything. And it's almost like there's a shift that's happening where more people, more business is done at the level of just heartfelt connection and a desire for sincere, meaningful contribution, and almost moving into more of a matriarchal or love-based environment. And there's a lot of shifts that need to be happening. And I still think it's so critical that as business owners and entrepreneurs, we know how to access the warrior, and we also know how to access the healer or the lover or the feminine energy within us too, to be able to have that, get the results done, but make sure that we do it for the highest good of all involved.
So, with either in your own life or in, the people that you surround yourself, I mean, you surrounded yourself with, you made a move and then you instantly created a big movement of friends around you and clients and, you called it a tribe around you. For the people around you, what are some, in 2000, with a consideration of 2012, massive transitions for people, what are some, what are some things that people need to be thinking about while they're in this transition about how to, what would it be, get to the other side of the transition or to move through
Yeah,
it?
actually, that's a great question. I think the first place that begins is getting rid of the idea that there is another side to the transition.
Uh-huh.
Getting rid of the idea that uncertainty will ever end. Like I think that we need to adopt the idea that there will always be uncertainty, and that uncertainty, in my belief, will continue to increase.
Uh-huh.
But the question becomes, how do we stand powerfully rooted and grounded in our own personal certainty amidst the uncertainty in our environment? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of aspects that we have control over. We have control over our actions, we have control over our perspective, we have control over specific things that we do in our business, but there will always be things outside of our control that will affect us. We don't have control over what our spouse chooses or thinks or believes or does. We don't have choice over the things that our clients do or things that happen in the economy. But how do we stand powerfully in our place? And that's really the question that I think is worth having a discussion about, is how do we stand rooted and powerfully no matter what's happening in our life. So for those of
I
you that
love
are
it.
watching this, like maybe some of you are experiencing major transition in your marriage or your relationship, or maybe you're experiencing crazy changes in your business. The question is, how do you stand firmly? How do you stand grounded? How do you not allow the uncertainty to affect your ability to move
Yeah.
forward
So
powerfully?
it's like the one constant is change, right?
Uh-huh.
And so that uncertainty is always there. And again, if you don't appreciate where you are now, where you are later is where you are now then. Meaning, meaning if you have a challenging time with it today, doesn't the other side, it'll be challenging tomorrow too. So
Yeah,
I love how you shifted that.
yeah, and I think another concept along with that is we need to really fully take accountability for the fact that we are the creators of our life. We are the creators of our own experience, and our past way of being, thinking, and believing have led us to this moment. And there's always outside forces, but ultimately our ability to stand powerfully is grounded in where we've been in the past. And until we learn until we really, really learn what our past way of being was that created the problems in our life right now, until we really learn those lessons have to repeat themselves. And my belief, they have to intensify until we're ready to listen.
Hmm.
And then the moment we actually resolve those things, and a lot of times, AJ, from your experience in doing a lot of hypnosis and inner work, a lot of times it roots back to deep childhood wounds, just to
Hmm.
be vulnerable. Like one of my experiences, yeah, I'll just be fully transparent. So last year, I just had crazy, like things were moving forward really good, really excited. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it felt my wife was ready to leave our relationship, and it totally threw everything off for me, and it kind of blindsided me in a lot of ways because I hadn't been listening to all the warning signs in the past, and I hadn't really been recognizing what was going on. And at a deeper level, I realized that a lot of what had created that situation is internally, I had this deep seated fear of rejection and a fear of abandonment.
Hmm.
And it's almost like this experience needed to happen in order for me to go deep inside to work on healing those wounds so that I could be free of that because we always kind of attract into our life those things that we fear most.
Yeah.
And we attract people into our life, and especially our spouses, who are uniquely designed to trigger those emotional buttons in a way that we can actually face and heal them and deal with them so we can move forward. But once we do deal with it, then all of a sudden we are able to step into a new space of power where we're no longer haunted by the problems of the past. We get to find new problems to deal with.
I totally buy into with balance the idea of focus on what you want, and yet there is that balance of kind of paying attention to the current signs for sure. Most people's way of dealing with the challenges in their lives is just to ignore it and maybe affirm the positive, which is always what I would call plan A. Sometimes all we need to do is just say, hey, this is the way it is, and that's the way it becomes. However, sometimes people say, there's something really like a big challenge there that actually needs to be addressed, and yet they just say, well, let's just affirm the other one, and they never address it, and they think, well, if you just ignore it, or time will heal all wounds. And from our experience, especially dealing with childhood, time doesn't heal the wounds, meaning, look, you've had that scar 40 years, since you were 4 years old, and it's still coming up today. It's like if you just pay to the sign. So sometimes we have to really deal with those things. But so plan A, for me is always just affirm the positive, and yet, every now and then you gotta, hey, check into the objective reality. What's going on? What are the real signs? And then if there are those signs, do that inner work. And heal those things. You're going to learn the lesson one way or another, and as you said, they get harder until you do.
Yeah. And I think for us, it's a lot of it of creating a deeper sense of awareness and just listening, right? Having that clear intention, okay, this is what I want to create in my life, but then listening and always being ready to realign, saying, okay, what is off? What's not working right now? And I think for a lot of us, not everyone, but I think there's certain personalities, such as the type of personality that I have, which is so focused on the positive and the optimistic that I don't want to look at the problem or the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, it's kind of like I kind of use this analogy. Like we had this like little noise that was happening in our car, right? And my wife was like, "Hey, what's that noise?" Like, I don't hear any noise. I don't hear any noise, and I would keep ignoring the noise until finally there would be a major like engine problem that could probably have been dealt with like really easily early on, but the problem just kept intensifying and intensifying until it's like the car breaks down. It's like, oh my gosh, now I have to deal with it. So I think for me, and maybe for a lot of people, the key is just having a greater sense of awareness, keeping strong and firm in terms of the intention of what you want to create, so that you're doing that, but you're also listening to, okay, what do I need to adjust? What do I need to shift? What do I need to heal to fix these things that keep showing up in my life that are not working?
The culture that you're in and around to surround yourself, and me too, really do oftentimes just talk about focusing on the positive things. And I believe that's where we need to kind of live, and focus on it. However, it's that kind of check in. One of the things that I do is on a weekly basis, at the very least, sometimes I do it more, is I do an after action review, and where in that week I say, okay, well, what went right? And I talk about all those, and then I ask myself, what could be more, different, or better? In other words, let's get rid of the positive programming for a moment and say, okay, even if it's not bad, like the car, okay, well, it's not bad. I don't have to fix it now, but could it be better? Yes. So more better. What could be more, better, or different, and just having those after action questions have always helped me. And when I'm doing a lot of activity, I do it on a daily basis, and if not, I do it on a weekly basis. I do it on a quarterly basis. I do it on a yearly basis, and stuff like that. So, what kind of things, have we've been talking about this kind of transition. You talked about being really rooted into it. We also talked about focusing on positive and paying attention to the signs, and maybe even doing some inner work for growth. what are some other good key things that you think could help a person as a feel they're in that place of uncertainty?
Yeah.
So for example, well, I'll just keep it the question at there. So
Yeah, so I think it's a great question, and obviously it's one that's been on my mind. And if there's any one single fundamental key that I think makes the biggest difference, I think it's discovering and really understanding at a core level who you really are.
so how does
Being
someone go
able
about doing that?
being able to really do that. And for me, and I'll just share my own experience and what I feel. I feel that when it really comes down to it, it's our connection to God that makes the biggest difference. Like I
Hmm.
really feel like at our core level, we are deeply spiritual beings. And when we learn to connect with God, when we learn to understand who He really is,
Hmm.
then we begin to see ourselves for who we really are. And we begin to experience ourselves and see ourselves through the eyes of God, in which we are always whole, we are always perfect, we are always loved, we are always magnificent and divine. And when we begin to see ourselves from that space of authentic and unconditional love,
Hmm.
then all of a sudden it doesn't matter what someone says about us because we know who we are. And just like Maxwell Maltz wrote this classic personal development book called
Yep.
Psycho-Cybernetics.
Yeah.
And the core message about that is we always live up to our own self-image. This
Hmm.
vision that we have for ourselves. We live up to our vision for what we're worth in money. We live up to our vision for what we believe we deserve in relationships. Every experience in our life is based on our self-image. So if you want to upgrade your experiences, or if you want to learn how to stand in more power and certainty and confidence, then you need to shift the way that you internally look at yourself and see yourself and drop all the stories that say you're not good enough, you're not loved, you're not lovable, that you can't do this, you'll never make money, all these negative lies that we buy into, and step into the truth of owning that we are sons and daughters of God. We are divine and whole, and the greater we can build our relationship with Him,
Hmm.
the more rooted we will stand in our own personal vision of ourself. Because this is what I've really understood. Like this is the whole game here. When we begin to know who God is,
Hmm.
then we know who we are, and
Hmm.
we discover that we are divine, just as our Creator is, and that we are a part of that
Hmm.
magnificence.
Awesome. I couldn't agree with you more. The biggest roots of our self image really comes down. That core part of our self image. Really stems from a sense of spirituality. In whatever way that person finds it. And so you got to find out. What is it. What is that kind of connection with God, or being, and you, because it is a reflection of you as well. I love taking a multiple approach to things, and meaning sometimes people can get so far with one thing, and let's say they're kind of new into the being introspective, and so that so if this route takes you a little bit further, well then we can take this route a little bit further, and then all of a sudden bumps up this game and bumps up this game. So I like taking a lot of multiple approaches. When it comes to understanding yourself, being introspective, understanding your stories, I think is just really huge. I used to do this workshop, and I've encouraged people to do this workshop, what's called My Story, where you just really seek out the stories of your life. It's like, okay, when you were one, what happened? I don't remember when I was one. Well, what state was your parents in? How were you rich? Were you poor? What kind of beliefs kind of happened there? What kind of stories? Okay, great. What happened when you were two? What happened when you were three? And come up with a story or something that happens all in each year of your life. It takes quite a while to do it, and it's amazing. All of a sudden, it's like, oh my gosh, this is the reason why, and it's finding out those things. That's another great way to really bump up your game and understand who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that, and I think listening to those stories and just being able to, it's kind of an advanced skill, isn't it, to have this level of clarity and perspective on our life that we can really begin to understand what are the stories that I've used in my life that have created this situation. To be able to really look at the results or the fruits of our life and to ask, okay, what's underneath this? What's a story? What's the belief I would have to have created this, to
Hmm.
do these actions, to and whether it's you're experiencing struggles financially or you're deep in debt or you're experiencing challenges in your relationship or whatever, to really be able to ask those questions. Okay, how did I create this? What stories have I had to have to lead to this? And to really look back and to realign those stories and figure out, okay, which of the stories are true and which of the stories are lies, and to really kind of learn how to adopt the stories that empower. And I mean, if all our stories are made up anyways, why not make up stories that actually support us, right?
Well,
But,
yeah, I'm sure you have experienced this too. It seems like the better I know people, or
hmm
know myself, the better I know other people. When I'm at the restaurant and I see, the person next to me just do something kind of like outrageous, they're like, you know, yelling at their spouse, or they're just like extremely rude to the waiter or something like that. My mind goes, boy, what happened in their childhood that makes them think this is all right to do? And I start, I find it fascinating. At the very least, it's entertaining to me, and it also gives me a sense of tolerance of other people. I have a lot of. I'm probably one of the. I think you and I both are probably the two most hardest people to to make angry. Just because I just don't get angry. I see someone going crazy or doing something. I'm like, wow, what happened in that person's life? And I go through all the stories of that. It's like, boy, I want to do a hypnosis session, regret, find out what it was,
Yeah.
And when this person says, oh, that person's a jerk, I'll never do business with them. I'm like, well, what did they see in the business world or in their life that made them think that's a proper and okay business etiquette, you know? Or what happened to this person to make them so intolerant, to other people, So that introspective not only is it beneficial to yourself, it's also beneficial to the way you interact and the way you perceive others,
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it really is, because when it really comes down to it, our perception of others is just merely a reflection of our perception of ourselves, right? When we really learn how to love ourselves, we love others. If we're judgmental of ourselves, we find those exact same things that we hate about ourselves to judge in others. And Debbie Ford wrote a great book. I don't know if you've read it, called Dark Side of the Light Chasers. Have you read that yet?
yeah, I've heard
Oh,
of it.
it's a brilliant book, and it's super transformational. It made a huge difference in my life. But one of the core things is anything that bugs you about someone else is just merely a part of you that you're resisting, that you're not claiming. It's merely a part of your shadow that's being reflected in them that you hate. So if you see someone and you judge them for being hypocritical, or if you judge them for being arrogant, or you judge them for being selfish, it just means that that's a reflection of who you are at some level. And what's powerful about that is when we learn how to love and accept even the shadow part of us, even the weakness, even the fears, even the insecurities, even the mistakes we make, when we learn how to really love ourselves as full, complete beings, meaning we might be hypocritical on one end, but we might be completely loving on the other. And we might be lying bastards on one end, and on the other hand, we're divine sons of God. Like when we're able to embrace ourselves as these full and complete beings, then we stop judging. We don't have a need to judge that in other people, because maybe we see someone do something where they lie or something. It's like, oh yeah, have I ever lied before? Yeah, I can. I've lied before. Okay, good. So maybe I can have compassion in them.
Yeah.
And so that's another huge part of learning how to stand fully rooted and grounded in our powers, learning how to fully accept both the shadow and the light of us.
Hmm.
And the other concept that she really emphasizes, which I think is really relevant, is the more we try to resist our weaknesses, the more power they have over our lives. The more we deny our shadow, the more it controls and fights us. This is really ultimately the source of addiction. This is the source of frustration, pain. Is just like when we cannot accept and embrace that part of us, it will continue to fight. Just as you've heard people say, what you resist persists. And
Hmm.
so going through the process is to learn how to embrace yourself fully, then gives you power. And what's great about this whole conversation, AJ, is you know I work with entrepreneurs, high power entrepreneurs that are looking to make more money, and this is the exact same conversation I have with them, because this ultimately is a gateway for them to be able to experience greater fulfillment, happiness, and power in their business as well, by
Hmm.
being able to really, you know, become whole and complete as individuals.
So, as we start to wrap this up, what I want to encourage the watchers and listeners today is not just to just hear these words, just to say, okay, great, I hear that. Here's what, and actually go through an experience. Take it into do your inner work, based off of that. Okay, well, if he said, the things that we don't like in others is a reflection of us, who's driving me crazy right now? What does that mean? Okay, great. How did that, where did that come from in my life? And and how did I come to that conclusion? And how else can I see it? You know,
Hmm.
is there a new way to do it? So do the work along with that. So as we kind of wrap up here, I got a couple of questions for you. One is, how would you summarize some of the things that we talked about? What's an action step someone can take for themselves?
Um, so I think that first and foremost, just adopting the new mindset that says my entire life is a personal development journey. My
Hmm.
entire life is learning to stand more powerfully in my power, learning how to release the lies and limits that have held me back in the past, and learn how to embrace the truth of the divinity of who I am. And just having that mindset that there's no destination, there's no other side. Like, this is the journey that we're on, and just embrace with joy the fact that there's always going to be uncertainty, but you can always stand in power in that uncertainty when you know who you are, and to be willing to take the time to have to turn off the TV and to avoid the distractions and stop trying to sedate yourself with distractions and drugs and alcohol or whatever your particular addiction or drug is, to numb the
Hmm.
uncertainty, and just be present with yourself and ask yourself, what's working in my life? And to get really clear, okay, I love this about my life. I love this about my life. I love this about my life. And look, how did I create these things? And then to really ask yourself those blunt questions, what's not working in my life? And to look at those, and then to simply ask, okay, what are the actions, like these three steps? What's not working in my life? What are the actions that have led to create this? And what would I need to believe to do those actions? So for instance, if you're out of if you're out of alignment with your body, and if you're overweight, ask, okay, what have I been doing or not doing that has created this? And then beneath that, really ask yourself, okay, what would I have to believe to do this? Well, I'd have to believe exercise is painful. I would have to believe that I'm not deserving of being sexy or healthy. I would have to believe, and just really get clear on what those core beliefs are that then make you feel like you're not lovable, you're not worthy. And then just to flip it on the side and say, okay, if I want this area to work in my life, what do I need to believe? And to say, okay, well, I would need to believe that exercise is a reward. I would need to believe that eating healthy is something that I deserve, and that there's healthy food that tastes good. I would need to believe that I'm worthy of having a healthy and energetic body. I'm worthy of having so good, and then begin a daily process, whether it's affirmations or hypnosis, working with AJ, or working with all sorts of different processes to really create that as your core framework, your core self image. Because from that standpoint, all the actions
Uh huh.
become natural, right? When you
Yeah.
believe truly that exercise is a reward, you're going to exercise just because you want to, not because you have
Yep,
to.
absolutely. I think about the people who exercise. They exercise to lose weight, and if that's their goal, once they've lost the weight, they stop and then they do it again. The people that I know who exercise on a long term, even if they're sick, I know someone, she runs 5 miles a day every day, and if she doesn't get it in, she gets cranky. It's her reward.
Mm.
It's, if I do, it's something that I just want to do. It's the reward itself it's not the path to a reward. It's the reward itself. So anyway,
Yeah.
fantastic. That was really awesome stuff. I'm sure that was incredibly powerful for the listeners. When they want to hear more, how could they follow what you're doing?
Love to connect with you further. There's obviously you can look me up on Facebook, GeraldRogers.com. Send me a friend request. Let me know that you had seen this interview with AJ and would love to connect with you there.
I'll put
And
some
then
links down below.
yeah. So once again, it's Gerald Rogers, and then yeah, go to GeraldRogers.com, GeraldRogers.com, and there you can download some free material that I've created and see some other content that I've put out there. And I would love to just continue this journey and really help you be a producer of prosperity and really help you step into your power. And yeah, I would love to.
Awesome.
Love to get to
And
know
I'm
you.
looking forward to doing more with you as well. So hey everybody, it's great being with you today. And just do us a favor and go out there and win. All right. So we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us. Thanks, Gerald. Thanks, Gerald. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks, AJ.